Welcome to the Three Championship Drive on YouTube, hosted by me, Lance Caporossi. Follow me on X at Lance Caporossi, the same way you see it spelled on the screen. And check out the Three Championship Drive podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and do me a favor, tell a Pistons fan. What's up, guys? Still a little under the weather. You can hear it in my throat, and I'll probably touch my nose a ton on this podcast, but hey, forgive me. So we have an Isaiah Stewart update. We still haven't heard from Isaiah Stewart or the Detroit Pistons on this matter. We did get an apology from Isaiah Stewart, and really that's all we need. Who cares why he hit Drew Eubanks? We just needed an apology saying, hey, I let the people down. He didn't let me down, though. If you need to settle something, just settle it. So this update comes from TMZ Sports. You got to love TMZ. So Drew Eubanks says Isaiah Stewart got off the bus and started talking trash and then said, you want to run it back? We're right here. We can do it right now. So there is apparently some real beef between these two. And Isaiah Stewart is just not letting it go. And I'm loving the way this story is starting off. Like, dude, I got to give it to Isaiah Stewart. Way to be petty. This is just incredible, and it just gets better. So Eubanks tells the cops he tried to walk away from the situation. You should probably run if you see Isaiah Stewart, just like LeBron did. But Isaiah Stewart kept advancing toward him until they were face to face. Eubanks said Isaiah Stewart said, we can do this crap right now, before he threw a sucker punch. So apparently, Eubanks didn't say anything. He just kept backing up and just walking away, not saying a thing, just like, I'm done with this. And it was all Isaiah Stewart talking. And then he just was like, hey, you don't want to go. I want to go. Let me throw a fist. And that's apparently what happened. So the punch landed in the center of Eubanks' mouth, causing his gums to bleed. And Eubanks said, my teeth definitely are like looser and they hurt. So I got to give it to Eubanks. He ate the punch. And Isaiah Stewart, he grew up boxing. So good for Eubanks. I got to say, you eat the punch. That's good on you. So when Eubanks was asked why he thinks Isaiah Stewart was upset, he said nothing out of the ordinary happened. It was just basketball stuff, lowering your shoulder, trying to hit somebody for a box out, being physical, talking on the court. That's a lot of stuff. I wonder what he said on the court. When the incident first occurred, Drew Eubanks told the cops he wanted to prosecute this when Isaiah Stewart was, and that's when Isaiah Stewart was issued a citation. However, on February 17th, 3 days after the incident, Eubanks called the cops and told them he no longer wanted to press charges. So that is the update we got. Again, we're only hearing it from the Phoenix Sun side. This is Drew Eubanks telling his side of the story. And I don't know if we're ever going to get anything from Isaiah Stewart. I mean, reading this out loud and just going over it, it just doesn't seem real to me at all. I just can't imagine this is how it all went down. I still believe Eubanks said something to Isaiah Stewart. It's, again, like, if Isaiah Stewart is this petty, great, cool. And it's honestly kind of hilarious holding this stuff for as long as he did, from when they last played in Detroit. That's all great. But I mean, again, it seems, I don't know. I guess I just don't see an actual human being doing this, whether they're an athlete or not. Like, it just seems so crazy to me. Maybe I've just been sheltered and grew up in a bubble my entire life. I have no idea. It just seems absurd to me that Isaiah Stewart would do this. I believe there is way more to this story, and I hope that we continue to get updates, and I hope that we eventually see a video and audio from this incident between Isaiah Stewart and Drew Eubanks. By the way, like, the comments are on social media are just all 50-50. Like, there are some that hate Isaiah Stewart and thinks that he needs the Draymond Green treatment, where if he wants to continue his basketball career, he needs to go see a therapist. And then the other half is like, dude, this is a bad boy. This is a Piston. This is what they do. They just fight. And whatever side you're on, it's whatever. But that's the update we got with Isaiah Stewart and Drew Eubanks. So center Taj Gibson is signing a 10-day contract with the Detroit Pistons. This comes from Mark Bartelstein. That's what he told ESPN. So it's an interesting choice of free agent. We've all been begging the Pistons to get some defense in the front court. We have been just craving a veteran with some defensive IQ to come in here and teach Duran how to play defense because we all desperately want him to be the anchor of this team defensively. So cool of the Pistons to bring in Taj Gibson. I am wondering if the Pistons are going to continue to audition some veterans in the front court because they only signed him to a 10-day. So I'm just wondering if it's just going to be a revolving door. And every time I do an episode, I'm going to be talking about a new front court player. And I just hope they, just get older every single time. Like, I hope Taj Gibson is the youngest veteran that the Pistons sign. I mean, who knows? It could just be an audition for him, and then maybe he gets signed for the rest of the season. So he has played 16 games this year, starting one, all for the New York Knicks. He played in 49 games with 2 starts last year with the Washington Wizards. He is very much past his prime. He did have 3 blocks in a game this year, which is just incredible. Again, that just shows how good he is defensively. I think he has like 6 on the season. And even though he's past his prime, this is the type of veteran the Pistons need on their team to teach the young bigs. I don't know if we're going to actually see minutes for Taj Gibson or he's just going to be a voice on the bench, but it would be just kind of hilarious if Taj Gibson did steal minutes from James Wiseman towards the end of the year. There were some other bigger voices on social media saying, like, look, this is kind of a waste of time. Why would Detroit bring in a veteran? Even though, again, like I said earlier, all of us have been begging the Detroit Pistons to bring in a veteran that does play defense to teach Duran, maybe even pass some knowledge to James Wiseman. Give a little knowledge to Isaiah Stewart. We've all been asking for it, but these bigger names on social media said, why not bring in some other young prospect? Like, why not do that? And, originally when I saw it, I was like, dude, good. We need a veteran. But also, this season is lost. And I don't know how much Taj Gibson is going to provide in terms of mentorship in 10 days for Duran, Isaiah Stewart, and Wiseman, and maybe even Asar, whoever you can throw him in there. I don't know how much mentorship he's going to bring them. So I kind of agree with the bigger names on social media. Why not bring in someone? I'm just going to throw their name out there. Scal Labisier. I think I'm probably butchering his last name, but why not bring him in? He is absolutely killing it in the G League. He's only 27 years old. When you watch him play in the G League, that looks like a 4 that you could play with Duran or Isaiah Stewart in the front court. He can block some shots. He has a good back to the basket game. He's been able to stretch it out on the floor a little bit. Like, I don't know. It's a lost season. He is 27. He's older than both guys. He's been around the NBA. I think he's played like 149 games. He's played overseas. He had stints in the G League. There's some knowledge that guy has where he could provide, some mentorship to those guys as well. I mean, he's been through it all. He was a number 1 high school prospect. He was highly touted as a recruit. He's, had his ups and downs in his professional basketball career. So why not bring him in? I think that would be a good look for the Pistons because, again, he's only 27. There still could be a little room for him to grow, but also he's closer in age to the bigs we already have on this team where he can, connect with them a little bit more and maybe even provide some mentorship to them. Because again, I just don't know what Taj Gibson is going to provide in a 10-day contract for this team. It's not like you don't just sign Taj Gibson and then Jalen Duren starts looking like a defensive player of the year candidate. I mean, that would be incredible if it did. Then please sign Taj Gibson to like a coaching contract after the 10 days are up. But maybe again, it is an audition and we'll see him for the rest of the season. But I'm going to go on a limb and say we're going to see a revolving door of 10-day contracts for the Detroit Pistons. And it's going to get real interesting towards the end of the season. So Monty Williams has said he is sticking with this starting five. And the starting five is Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Asar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart, and Jalen Duren. He's going to stick with them for a while. He also said he likes Simone Fontecchio with the bench to do his thing. Look, I'm a little happy and disappointed with Monty Williams sticking with this lineup. I'm happy because we'll get a long look at the core four or core five, if you want to call them that. And more importantly, we'll see how Cade and Jaden Ivey fit together over the rest of the season. Because to me, that is the most important question that needs an answer. You need to see how Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham fit because you have invested a lot in these two. And going forward with this rebuild, restore, whatever you want to call it, a lot of it depends on how those two play with each other. Like if they don't fit, you're gonna have to restart somewhere. And the backcourt, it's pretty important. It's a guards league now. So Cade and Jaden Ivey, and I'm getting all of this from NBA.com. They average 20 minutes per game together, 48 minutes per game, 18 rebounds, 11 assists, 6.7 turnovers. They have shooting splits of 48, 37, and 77 when they're on the floor together. They have an offensive rating of 110 and a defensive rating of 118. So they're negative 7.6. It's safe to say these two need a little bit more time together. So that's what makes me happy with this starting lineup. We're going to see these two really try to figure it out. But from the eye test, the fit is a little awkward because both Cade and Jaden Ivey need the ball in their hands, and that's fine. But if your strategy is to put the ball in Jaden Ivey's hands, and I've seen this from fans, if you want to put the ball in Jaden Ivey's hands and have Cade played more off ball, the Pistons are still going to lose because Cade is the team. I get it. There's complaints for both. But really, you really want to see if Cade can figure out how to run this team. And he has shown some flashes of what he can do. I like what he does with the ball more. I don't like the heliocentric stuff. I mean, I do agree with Cade playing off the ball, but again, if you want to put Jaden Ivey in that spot where he's the primary ball handler and you want Cade just kind of playing off the ball and kind of waiting on the wing for him, you lose some of the best parts of Cade Cunningham's game. That's why I would rather have Cade be the number one option, and then Jaden Ivey be the number two option. So if Jaden Ivey is 80% of himself when he's on the floor with Cade, Monty has to stagger him so he can be himself on the floor in certain lineups. That is something that I want to see, and we're not seeing it. That is what makes this that's what makes this so awkward because we know that both players need the ball in their hands. And I really think that both of these guys need to be on the floor, not only together, but also at separate times so we can really play to both of their strengths and maximize their talent. And hopefully both these guys reach their ceilings. That's what I want to see, but we're not seeing it. And man, it's just Jaden Ivey, like Cade is good off the ball. Jaden Ivey's not so good off the ball. That is something he is going to have to figure out as things go on. Because, like I said, you're not taking the ball out of Cade's hands in favor of Jaden Ivey because Cade with the ball in his hands is still better than Jaden Ivey with the ball in his hands. I don't know how you figured out. Now, there were some in one of the, I forget which game it is. I think it might have been against Chicago, maybe Orlando, where they were doing some kind of cool stuff with Jalen Turner, where they were giving him the ball at the elbow, and then he was deciding, okay, who am I giving it back to, Cade or Jaden Ivey? And I kind of like that a little bit, but man, I just don't want to see Cade defer to Jaden Ivey. I just think that is a recipe for disaster. But I mean, what really is a recipe for good results with this season, anyways? Again, I don't know. But that is something that going forward, they really need to figure out. And with Jaden Ivey, man, probably my biggest complaint is just he needs to figure out how to play off of Cade because those two really need to figure out how to make it work, going forward. So let me just get back to this whole starting lineup thing. So I'm disappointed because there's a real chance that Monty Williams could build up the second unit by bringing Isaiah Stewart off the bench and moving moving Simone Fontecchio to the starting lineup. Now, I will admit that we are seeing this a little bit with Isaiah Stewart playing the five with the second unit, and we're pushing James Wiseman's minutes. We're not really seeing him in the first half. We're really starting to see him more in the second half. I really like that. I mean, I love Isaiah Stewart, let me just say this, but for him to really flourish in the NBA right now is to come off the bench and beat up on second units. He's so good against second units. He really is, and I'm gonna get into the numbers right here with the lineups here in a second. I know fans wanna see James Wiseman develop, and that's why like, I've talked to some fans where they're like, "No, I wanna see Duren and Isaiah Stewart start together because I still wanna see the Pistons giving James Wiseman minutes because I still believe in him as a player because he has that athleticism, he has that length, he has that wingspan that you just can't teach, and that's fine and everything, but I want to see the Pistons finish the season strong. I want to see them win more games. I want to see this young core going into the offseason being like, man, we went through a rough stretch. We had a crazy losing streak, but we finished the season strong. We got some wins. We're starting to figure it out. That's how I want to see them go into it. But again, you're not going to get that playing James Wiseman heavy minutes. That's why I think it's so important bringing Isaiah Stewart off the bench, keeping him with that second unit, or bringing in another big that's going to steal minutes away from James Wiseman. That's the only way I think you can somewhat get this ship back on course. And I hate to say it, but out of all of the guys that have played at least 10 or more games for the Detroit Pistons, James Wiseman, he has the worst net rating out of all of them. He's just that bad on the floor. And like I've never questioned his effort. I see him sprint up and down the floor. I know he's trying, but he doesn't have good hands. He's slow to react. It doesn't seem like he's playing off instinct. It's just there's just so much he doesn't have very much strength either. Like he gets bullied by a few guys. He doesn't know how to set a screen. We started to see him slip screens a little bit, but man, it's just there's just so much there's so much wrong with James Wiseman, and maybe he eventually figures it out someday. I don't know, but I just don't think it's with Detroit, and I'm ready to wash my hands of James Wiseman and give those minutes somewhere else. So the starting lineup of or the five-man lineup of Cade, Ivy, Asar, Isaiah Stewart, and Jalen Duren. I'm sure if you're on social media, you've seen these numbers, but I'm gonna say them again. They have an offensive rating of 109, a defensive rating of 120. They're minus 10.9 in the net rating department. And when you compare that to a lineup of Cade, Ivy, Asar, Simone Fontecchio, and Duren, that five offensive rating is 111. Their defensive rating is 108. They have a positive net rating. And out of all of the lineups that have played 100 or more minutes, they're the only five that have a positive net rating. Everybody else, every other five-man lineup has a negative net rating. I don't know why Monty is blind to it. And so I'm not a fan of the starting lineup he's going with because it's supposed to be a quote unquote defensive lineup and they lack defense. And I really do believe that falls on the shoulders of Jalen Duren. They really need him to step up defensively. And I guess that's why you brought in Taj Gibson. And I don't know what press conference it was, but Duren did talk about his defense and how he does need to step up on that end of the floor. So my second complaint is that Simone Fontecchio is not a bad defender. He's not great, but he understands where he needs to be. He plays with effort, and he just kind of understands the concept of defense in which the Pistons are trying to run. That's what I love about him on the floor. Plus, he provides spacing for Caden Ivey by pulling his defender away. But the crazy thing is, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, Simone Fontecchio needs to be on the floor with Cade and Ivy because they free him up on offense. This guy is not Boyan where he can dance with the defense, where he can create his own shot like that. Like he doesn't, yes, we've seen him put the ball on the floor and it does look good sometimes, but he's not that isolation player. He's not a shot creator. He is, I'm going to move without the three. I'm going to move without the ball. That's how I'm going to create space for myself. I'm a movement shooter. I'm a spot up shooter. He can put the ball on the floor when teams are attacking closeouts. That is a nice thing he has, but he's not Boyan. You can't just say, hey, run with the second unit and go create something. It looks sloppy. You're putting him in a bad position. That is why I want to see Simone Fontecchio with in the starting lineup, or at least closing the game, which we did see in the last game where he played all 12 minutes of the fourth quarter. That was great. But it's just, how does Monty not figure these things out? It's so rough to watch. He just, I don't even know what to say, because that first five-man group, I don't want to dump on any player, and I don't want to dump on any five-man lineup. But dude, what are we going to do? You only have so many games left. I don't want this team to be the Clippers of the Eastern Conference of the early 2000s, where they have all this young talent, but they can never put it together because, terrible coaching, not enough veterans, a coach that doesn't know how to, what kind of lineups to run with. I want to see better from Monty, and the proof is in the pudding. The numbers speak for themselves. So we need to talk about Jaden Ivey here just for a minute. I hate to quickly flip topics, but man, sorry again about the coughing, everybody. I do apologize for that. Like I said, just still getting over something. So we need to talk about Jaden Ivey. He has been struggling in his last 9 games. Jaden Ivey is putting up 12.4 points per game, 1.6 rebounds, 3.4 assists, zero point 0.7 steals, 0.6 blocks, with shooting splits of 32.7, 15.6, and 87.5. Free throw numbers are great. I don't know how many times he's getting to the line, but that 3-point percentage is just, that's ugly. That field goal percentage is ugly. In the previous 9 games, I want to say he was averaging 24 and 4 with around 50% from the field, and I think around like 50% from the three, maybe even better. Like, he had some godly numbers from the 3-point line. He was looking real nice in those previous 9 games. So this is a slump for Jaden Ivey. I don't want to hear this is just more of Monty not using him right. He needs the ball in his hands. We should give him the keys and forget about Cade. I don't want to hear that. I see that a lot on social media. So it is a slump, and it's affecting his overall game. Like, his rebounding numbers are down. He's not crashing the boards like he once was. Really, just his overall game is down. But one thing I've noticed from Jaden Ivey when I've been watching the Pistons, he's just way too passive. You see Cade and like Duran trying to talk to him, being like, dude, let's get this going. Like, attack the rim. Let's do something. Don't be passive. It seems like he's settling too much for threes as well, where the last time I recorded an episode, I did talk about his 3-point numbers, especially his 2 dribble when he's coming off a screen. Those are good, but it does seem like the defense has been playing more to stopping his 3-point shot, and that's when he really should be going downhill and attacking and trying to get to the rim. I don't know if it's him just getting in his own head. Maybe he's thinking, do we got Quentin Grimes? We got some other young guys on this team. Marcus Sasser's back. Like, if I mess up, I'm going to find myself on the bench sitting next to Monty. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just a sophomore slump and I'm looking way too into it. But Jaden Ivey has struggled, and they need to figure this out. I don't know if it was like the talking trash with Benedict Mathurin. Maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know. But man, this slump is bad for Jaden Ivey, because even though I talked a little bit about the awkward fit between him and Cade, they were kind of figuring it out just a little while ago, where they were both looking like they were going to be real building blocks for this team for many, many years. But now with this slump, and again, you could just blame it being a sophomore, maybe he hit a wall. I don't know. But I'm kind of worried that maybe the fit really isn't there with Cade. And if you don't put the ball in Jaden Ivey's hands, he's just kind of look like a journeyman or an average player in the NBA, because that's what those numbers are saying to me. Hopefully it's just a slump and he figures it out. I want to get on to my final topic because my throat is just killing me right now. Mike Muscala was recently waived, but according to James Edwards III, Mike Muscala was fine with staying in Detroit. However, Monty told him he most likely wouldn't play because they want to give the minutes to James Wiseman. Waiving Mike Muscala annoyed me, because I still don't understand why the Pistons traded for him in the first place and then played him for a couple of weeks and then waived him. Like, if this was already the thought process, just let him go early on. I find it hard to believe that the Pistons were like, look, we got to unload Marvin Bagley's contract. It's too bad right now. I felt like you could have held on to him in the offseason. And I don't want to hear that the Pistons were like, look, we got to get rid of Isaiah Livers or Monty's just going to keep playing him. I don't believe that was the case either. I just think that maybe they did have somewhat of like a short future with Mike Muscala and Danilo Gallinari. Like maybe that's what they wanted. And then Monty said, look, it's a lost season. I don't care about the wins. I'm just going to play James Wiseman and see what I have in this guy. Maybe that's what it is. I know that Mike Muscala wasn't a savior, and I don't want to talk about him like he was, but he was a positive player when he was on the floor. I think his net rating was like plus 13 or something like that. And he really opened up things for the Pistons. I thought he was a good veteran, dude. He knew how to set a screen. He could stretch the floor. He played good defense. Like he knew where to be defensively. Like he was a pro. That's all he was. And he really helped things out. I mean, he wasn't the reason the Pistons won a few games, but he was a reason they won a few games. And I don't know. I don't like to I see Pistons fans saying like, dude, Troy Weaver's doing him a favor and everything. And when it comes to other players, because I guess it shows GM is looking out for his guys. But dude, how about just go out and sign and trade some guys that you don't have to waive? They're going to be here for more than a couple of weeks. How about go and find players like that? That's what I want to see from Troy Weaver in the Detroit Pistons. I don't care about the loyalty thing. I don't care that you're looking out for players. How about just make this an environment that players want to come to and where they don't want to be waived? How about that? That would be really nice for us fans going forward. Thank you guys for listening to the 3 Championship Drive podcast. Do me a favor, go to Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. After you subscribe, leave a review, drop a rating, but more importantly, tell a Pistons fan.